Hello and welcome to Wellness Unplugged, the podcast where we talk about real, raw, and often controversial topics around mental health and well-being. I'm Lesley, your host, and today we're diving into a big one, something that we wear like a badge of honor, even though it's secretly wrecking our focus, our mood, and our mental clarity. Today's episode is all about multitasking. You know the drill. Cooking dinner while checking emails, answering a WhatsApp message mid-Zoom call, trying to write a report while also half listening to a podcast, folding laundry, feeding the cat, and thinking about your mother-in-law, all at once. We tell ourselves it's efficiency. We tell ourselves it's how the world works. But what if I told you that multitasking, this thing that we're so incredibly proud of, is actually a myth, at least in the way we think of it? Let's explore the neuroscience, psychology, and impact of multitasking on our minds and uncover how doing more might just be causing us to achieve a lot less and feel a whole lot worse while doing it. Here's the truth. Your brain can't multitask, not the way we think it can. Cognitive science tells us that what we call multitasking is actually task switching. You're not doing two things at once. You're switching rapidly between them. And each time you switch, your brain goes through a brief mental reset. That reset takes milliseconds, but over the course of the day, it adds up to hours of lost productivity, mental exhaustion, and what psychologists are now calling attention residue. Let me try and explain that to you. Imagine your attention is like a sticky note. When you move from one task to another, a bit of that sticky residue stays behind. You never fully arrive at the next task with a clean slate. Instead, part of your brain is still lingering on the last one. That's why you might find yourself rereading the same paragraph 4 times, or walking into a room and forgetting why you're there. Multitasking taps into a very human desire to be efficient, capable, and in control. Psychologically, it gives us a false sense of productivity. It makes us feel busy, which in today's world can feel like a marker of success. But beneath the surface buzz is a brain that's actually overstimulated and underperforming. Studies show that multitasking increases cortisol, the body's primary stress hormone. It also overstimulates the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for decision-making, emotional regulation, and focus. This is the same part of the brain that gets overwhelmed in anxiety. When you've bombarded it with too much information, it starts to make errors, miss subtle cues, and struggle to regulate your emotions. That is why multitasking doesn't just make us worse at our jobs. It also makes us more irritable, impatient, and mentally fatigued. Let's be honest, multitasking can feel addictive. There's a rush in feeling busy, like you're juggling flaming swords while riding a unicycle. You feel needed, important, plugged in. But sometimes that rush is actually anxiety in disguise. If we stop multitasking, we're left alone with one task, and sometimes with our own thoughts. And for many people, that feels very uncomfortable. We also live in a culture that rewards multitasking. Workplaces prize fast-paced environments. Schools demand constant performance. Social media floods us with stimulation and trains us to crave the next thing, even before we've finished with the first. We don't just multitask because we're good at it. We do it because we've been conditioned to believe that stillness is laziness and focus is a luxury. So how do we unhook from the multitasking myth without dropping the very real responsibilities we carry? Here are a few very doable shifts that won't require you to go and live in a cabin with no Wi-Fi. Number 1, start with micro monotasking. You don't need to light candles and chant each time you do a task. Just start by doing one thing at a time, even if it's for just 10 minutes. Wash the dishes without a podcast. Write the email without checking your phone. These moments rebuild your brain's focus muscle. Number 2, use focus anchors. Set a timer. You could try the Pomodoro technique, which is 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off. This teaches your brain to work in bursts of deep focus. It's like interval training for attention. Number 3, create a distraction list. Keep a small notebook next to you. When a thought pops up, buy dog food, email Sarah, Google whether cats actually dream, write it down and return to your task at hand. This helps offload your mental clutter, allows you to go back to it later, and keeps you in the present. Number 4, reframe your worth. This one's big. Remind yourself that you are not more valuable because you are busier. Productivity is not a personality. Focus is not indulgent. You are allowed to do one thing well rather than 10 things badly. Here's the part we often miss. Multitasking doesn't just affect our work and memories. It also affects our relationships, creativity, and our inner peace. When you're constantly distracted, you stop truly listening. Conversations become almost transactional. Creativity dries up because your brain never gets a quiet place to explore and play. You miss the subtleties of life, the expression on someone's face, the silence between the words, the ideas that need time to surface. Multitasking over time disconnects you from others, from joy, and from yourself. But the opposite is also true. When you choose presence, even for 5 minutes, you reconnect with your mind, your breath, your senses. And in that space, your nervous system softens, your creativity sparks, your memory improves, and you feel, maybe for the first time in days, that you've actually been there for your own life. So here's the takeaway. Multitasking is not a superpower, it's a trap. It tricks us into thinking we're achieving more when we're actually exhausting our minds, diluting our focus, and missing out on the richness of being present. Let's start small. Let's reclaim focus. Let's remember that just because the world demands 100 tabs open doesn't mean your brain has to. If you found some value in this episode or want to share your own multitasking recovery story, I'd love to hear from you. Please reach out to me on info@lesleyharvey.co.za. And I'll leave you with this quote. You can do 2 things at once, but you cannot focus effectively on 2 things at once. Gary Keller. Thank you for joining me on Wellness Unplugged. Until next time, unplug, recharge, and remember, your wellness matters more than you think.
The radio station you can't live without. This is your radio.
This is South Coast Radio.